Welcome to Explore with Adam. Today we are going to deep dive into the mystery of Skinwalker Ranch and what's really going on there. How this remote Utah ranch became a paranormal activity hotspot. You know, Skinwalker Ranch has been making headlines and sparking imaginations for decades. There's so many stories, UFOs, strange creatures, cattle mutilations, and more. It seems like everyone from scientists to TV producers wants to know what's really going on at this remote Utah ranch. So today we're going to dig into the history of Skinwalker Ranch, exploring some of the most compelling events and theories.
Yeah, it's a place that seems to defy logic and explanation. What fascinates me is how this one location has become a focal point for paranormal enthusiasts and researchers alike. It really captures the imagination, doesn't it?
Okay, let's unpack this. We've got news articles, a couple of research papers, even some declassified government documents about Skinwalker Ranch. A pretty eclectic mix, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely, and that reflects the multifaceted nature of the mystery itself. We've got folklore, eyewitness accounts, scientific investigations, all intertwined.
Right, so where do we even begin? Well, I guess it's the name itself. Skinwalker. It's a term that sends shivers down your spine, doesn't
Oh,
it?
it does. And it speaks to the deep-rooted cultural history surrounding the ranch. While the ranch is on land traditionally inhabited by the Ute tribe, the name Skinwalker comes from Navajo folklore. It refers to malevolent witches capable of shape-shifting into animals.
So how did this Navajo term become associated with a ranch in Ute territory?
Well, that's a question that anthropologists and historians are still debating. It's possible the name was popularized by media coverage in the 90s, or perhaps it reflects a blending of different cultural beliefs and legends in the region.
It definitely adds an air of mystery
Hmm.
and a bit of creepiness to the whole thing.
Yeah, it does. It sets the stage for the kinds of strange events that people associate with the ranch.
Speaking of strange events, let's talk about the Sherman family. They purchased the ranch back in 1994, hoping for a quiet life in the Utah countryside.
But their experience quickly turned into a nightmare, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. The Shermans reported a whole array of bizarre phenomena, everything from UFO sightings to strange electromagnetic disturbances that would interfere with their equipment. And then there's that infamous story of the wolf-like creature that seemed impervious to bullets.
Yeah, that particular account has become central to the Skinwalker Ranch legends, hasn't it? It speaks to the feeling of helplessness and fear that many associate with the location.
Imagine you're Terry Sherman, the father, and you see this massive wolf-like creature just appear out of nowhere. You fire multiple shots at close range, but the bullets have no effect. That would shake anyone to their core.
And the Shermans claimed it wasn't an isolated incident. They reported seeing these inexplicable orbs of light hovering over the property, finding strange crop circles, and even witnessing cattle mutilations that were oddly surgical and bloodless.
Right, and these accounts are often cited as the starting point for the modern fascination with Skinwalker Ranch. Though some skeptics suggest the Shermans might have exaggerated their stories to attract a buyer, especially one with a known interest in the paranormal.
Right, that's where Robert Bigelow enters the picture.
Exactly. Bigelow, a wealthy hotel magnate with a fascination with UFOs, purchased the ranch from the Shermans in 1996 for $200,000.
And that purchase marked a turning point in the Skinwalker Ranch saga. Bigelow was determined to bring a scientific approach to the investigation of paranormal activity, and he saw the ranch as the perfect laboratory.
He founded the National Institute for Discovery Science, or NIDSI, and poured resources into researching the ranch. They brought in teams of scientists, physicists, even intelligence officers, equipped with state-of-the-art surveillance technology.
Yeah, they're really trying to capture definitive evidence of whatever was going on. It was a pretty ambitious undertaking.
You'd think with all that effort and technology, they'd have come up with some concrete answers.
Well, you would, wouldn't you? But even with all their resources, NIDSI's investigations yielded more questions than answers. Their equipment malfunctioned frequently, particularly in certain areas of the ranch, and they documented numerous unusual events, but nothing definitive.
It's almost like the ranch itself was resisting their attempts to understand it.
Maybe. Or maybe they were simply looking for the wrong kind of evidence. Perhaps conventional scientific instruments aren't designed to detect or measure whatever phenomena are occurring at Skinwalker Ranch.
That's a thought-provoking idea. What if the very act of observation somehow influences the phenomena? We're getting a bit philosophical here, but it's an interesting concept.
It is, and it's a concept that some quantum physicists have explored in other contexts. The observer effect, as it's known, suggests that the act of observing a phenomenon can actually alter its state.
So maybe NIDSI's presence at Skinwalker Ranch was inadvertently changing the very things they were trying to study.
It's a possibility. But regardless of the reason, NIDSI's lack of definitive proof only deepened the mystery surrounding Skinwalker Ranch.
Well, NIDSI disbanded in 2004, but they held on to the ranch until 2016, when it was sold again, this time to a Utah real estate mogul named Brandon Fugel. And this is where things take another interesting turn, right?
They do, because Fugel doesn't shy away from the ranch's notoriety. He partners with the History Channel to create a TV series called The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, bringing the mystery to a much wider audience.
Exactly. And this series, which is ongoing, features a new team of investigators, using a combination of scientific methods and, frankly, a bit of a reality TV flair to try and unravel the secrets of the ranch.
Yeah, the show has really reignited the debate about what's really going on at Skinwalker Ranch. It's introduced a whole new generation to the mysteries and sparked countless discussions online and in the media.
It's amazing how this one place continues to capture our imaginations.
It really is, and it's not just Skinwalker Ranch itself. The entire Uinta Basin where the ranch is located seems to be a hotspot for paranormal activity. There are reports of UFO sightings and strange phenomena dating back centuries in the region.
You're right. In 1776, Franciscan missionary Silvestre Vélez de Escalante documented seeing strange fireballs while exploring the area, for instance.
Exactly. And then there's Bottle Hollow, the reservoir on Ute land right next to Skinwalker Ranch. That place seems to be a magnet for strange lights and unexplained events.
Like large glowing orbs plunging into the water and then re-emerging as different shapes, or even disappearing altogether. And there are those unsettling stories about people experiencing strange illnesses after visiting the area, too.
There have been claims of people experiencing a range of unusual symptoms after spending time at or near Skinwalker Ranch, yes. Some researchers believe there might be a connection between these illnesses and potential exposure to unusual electromagnetic fields or radiation in the area.
It's almost like there's something about the Uinta Basin itself that either attracts or generates these strange phenomena, and Skinwalker Ranch seems to be at the epicenter of it all.
That's a possibility that some researchers are exploring. They're looking into potential geophysical anomalies in the area that might be contributing to these occurrences.
It's mind-boggling to think about, isn't it?
It is, and it raises so many questions. Which brings us to the big question, doesn't it? What are the prevailing theories that attempt to explain the Skinwalker Ranch phenomenon?
We've laid the groundwork, explored the history, and the eyewitness accounts. Now let's dive into the theories and see if we can make sense of it all. What do you say?
Let's do it. When we talk about Skinwalker Ranch, we often focus on those sensational stories of UFOs and strange creatures. But there's another layer to this mystery that's equally intriguing.
You're talking about the Native American perspective, right? We touched on the Navajo Skinwalker legend earlier, but the ranch itself sits on land that's been inhabited by the Ute tribe for centuries.
Exactly, and the Ute people have their own rich oral history and folklore, which includes stories about powerful spirits and supernatural beings associated with specific locations.
So rather than imposing the Navajo Skinwalker onto this location, maybe we should be asking what the Ute perspective might tell us about the strange phenomena at Skinwalker Ranch.
Precisely. And there's some evidence to suggest that the Ute people might have long been aware of the unusual nature of this particular area.
Okay. I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Well, for instance, according to Ute tradition, springs and certain waterways are considered to be reservoirs of power, sometimes negative power, places where malevolent spirits might reside.
Interesting. And that ties into those reports of people experiencing negative energy or even illnesses after visiting Bottle Hollow, the reservoir that's right next to Skinwalker Ranch.
It does. And it suggests that there might be a deeper, more ancient layer to the Skinwalker Ranch mystery, one that predates the modern accounts and even the arrival of European settlers.
So we're not just talking about UFOs and cattle mutilations. We're potentially dealing with something that's been woven into the fabric of this land for generations.
Right. And the Ute people have stories about creatures that shapeshift, about portals to other realms, about places where the veil between the physical and spiritual world is thin. These stories resonate with some of the modern accounts from Skinwalker Ranch.
It's almost as if those early settlers and those who came later unknowingly stumbled upon a place that the indigenous people had long regarded as sacred, or perhaps dangerous.
And the Ute people had their own ways of interacting with these spiritual forces, ways that were often dismissed or misunderstood by European settlers.
So when the Sherman family arrived in the 1990s, maybe they inadvertently disrupted something, or maybe they were simply more susceptible to the energies that were already present in the land.
It's a possibility, and it highlights the importance of understanding the cultural context when we're dealing with these kinds of phenomena.
You've given me a whole new perspective on the Skinwalker Ranch story.
It's just one piece of the puzzle, of course.
Right. But a crucial piece, I think. It reminds us that we need to approach these mysteries with humility and respect for the beliefs and experiences of those who came before us.
Couldn't agree more. And it also raises the question of whether there might be a connection between these paranormal hotspots and specific geological or energetic features of the Earth.
You're going back to those geophysical processes we were discussing earlier.
Exactly. Some researchers believe that certain areas might be more prone to electromagnetic fluctuations, tectonic strain, or other anomalies. That could trigger unusual experiences.
So it's not just about what's happening on the surface. We need to consider what might be going on beneath our feet as well.
Precisely. And that's where things get really fascinating. Because if there is a link between the paranormal and these geophysical processes, then we might start to develop a more scientific framework for understanding these phenomena.
So we can move beyond the realm of speculation and folklore and actually start to measure and quantify what's happening at places like Skinwalker Ranch.
That's the hope. But it requires a shift in thinking, a willingness to consider possibilities that might lie outside our current scientific paradigm.
But isn't that what science is all about? Pushing the boundaries of knowledge, challenging our assumptions, and exploring the unknown.
Absolutely. And in the case of Skinwalker Ranch, those boundaries are being pushed further than ever before.
Okay, so we've got this incredible mix of folklore, eyewitness accounts, and scientific inquiry. But let's get back to those theories we were talking about. Is there one that you find particularly compelling?
It's tough to choose, to be honest. Each theory has its strengths and weaknesses. The extraterrestrial hypothesis is intriguing. But after decades of investigation, we still lack the kind of irrefutable evidence you'd expect if aliens were truly visiting Skinwalker Ranch.
And while the interdimensional theory is mind-blowing, it's almost impossible to prove or disprove with our current understanding of physics.
Exactly. And those geophysical theories we talked about are interesting. They offer a potential link between the strange events and the unique characteristics of the Uinta Basin, but they don't fully explain everything, especially those more subjective experiences people report.
The feelings of being watched, the sense of dread that some people describe, those aspects are harder to quantify or explain through scientific means.
Right. They touch on something beyond the purely physical, something that perhaps defies our current methods of measurement and observation.
So we're left with a tantalizing mystery, a place where science and folklore intersect, and where the line between reality and the unexplained seems to blur.
And that's precisely what makes Skinwalker Ranch so captivating. It's a place that forces us to confront the limits of our knowledge and to consider the possibility that there might be forces at work in the universe that we're only just beginning to understand.
Now that we've examined some of the leading theories, let's shift gears a bit. We've talked a lot about the potential dangers of Skinwalker Ranch, the unexplained illnesses, the strange creatures, the pervasive feeling of dread. But there's also this undeniable sense of wonder and awe surrounding the place, isn't there?
Absolutely. People are drawn to Skinwalker Ranch not just out of fear, but also out of a desire to connect with something bigger than themselves, something mysterious and unknown.
Exactly. And I think that's an important aspect to acknowledge. It speaks to our innate human curiosity, our drive to explore the unknown, even if it carries risks.
You're right. It's a reminder that the unknown can be both frightening and exhilarating, and that sometimes the most profound discoveries are made when we venture beyond our comfort zones.
Speaking of venturing beyond our comfort zones, we've got some declassified government documents about Skinwalker Ranch, and these documents shed light on a lesser-known chapter in the ranch's history, the involvement of the Defense Intelligence Agency, or DIA.
Oh, yes. This is where things get really interesting. In the late 1990s, the DIA funded a program called the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, or ATIP. This program was tasked with investigating reports of unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAPs, what we commonly refer to as UFOs.
Wait, so the government was actually taking UFOs seriously enough to fund a dedicated program?
They were. And you know the head of ATIP, Luis Elizondo, has stated publicly that they considered Skinwalker Ranch to be a location of interest. He believes that there's evidence to suggest that some UAPs might be interdimensional, or even transtemporal in nature, meaning they might not be extraterrestrial, but rather something else entirely.
Wow, this is blowing my mind.
It's definitely a paradigm shift, but it aligns with some of the theories we've been discussing. If there are other dimensions or realities coexisting with our own, then it's possible that Skinwalker Ranch is a point of convergence, a place where the barriers between these realities become permeable.
So instead of aliens from another planet,
Hmm.
we might be dealing with beings or entities from other dimensions, or even from different points in time.
It's a radical concept, but one that's being seriously considered by some scientists and researchers, including those who've studied the Skinwalker Ranch phenomenon.
So how does this DIA involvement change our understanding of Skinwalker Ranch?
Well, for one thing, it lends credibility to the idea that there's something truly unusual happening at the ranch. If the government, particularly an agency like the DIA, is taking an interest, then it suggests that they believe there's something worth investigating, something that might even pose a potential threat.
It also raises questions about what the government knows, or what they might be hiding, about Skinwalker Ranch and the UAP phenomenon in general.
Exactly, and that's where we move into the realm of speculation and conspiracy theories. There are those who believe that the government has been covering up evidence of extraterrestrial contact for decades, and that Skinwalker Ranch is just one piece of a much larger puzzle.
So we've gone from Navajo skinwalkers to Ute legends, from geophysical anomalies to interdimensional beings, and now we've got government conspiracies in the mix. This is one complex and fascinating mystery.
It is, and the more we learn about Skinwalker Ranch, the more we realize how much we don't know.
But isn't that the beauty of it all? The mystery is what keeps us coming back, what drives us to explore, to question, and to push the boundaries of our understanding.
I couldn't agree more. Skinwalker Ranch is a reminder that there's still so much wonder and mystery in the world, and that sometimes the most profound truths are found in the places where science and the unexplained collide.
Well said. But before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to touch on one more aspect of the Skinwalker Ranch phenomenon. We've talked about the potential dangers, the awe-inspiring mysteries, and the government's interest. But there's another element to this story that I find particularly intriguing: the human element.
Of course. After all, it's the human experiences, the eyewitness accounts, the researchers' efforts to understand, that make Skinwalker Ranch so compelling. What are you thinking about specifically?
Well, I'm thinking about the idea of consciousness and its potential role in shaping reality. We touched on the observer effect earlier, the notion that the act of observation can influence the outcome of an experiment. But what if our consciousness, our thoughts, our beliefs, can actually influence the world around us in a more profound way?
Now you're getting into some truly mind-bending territory, but it's a fascinating area of exploration. And there are some physicists and philosophers who believe that consciousness might be a fundamental aspect of reality, just as fundamental as space and time.
So you're saying that our minds might not just be passive observers of reality, but active participants in creating it.
It's a radical concept, I know. But if it's true, it could have profound implications for how we understand the Skinwalker Ranch phenomenon.
For instance, what if the intense fear and anticipation experienced by some visitors to the ranch is actually amplifying or even manifesting some of the paranormal activity?
Exactly. Or what if those who believe in the power of the Skinwalker, those who are attuned to the spiritual energies of the land, are more likely to experience those phenomena?
It's almost as if Skinwalker Ranch is a mirror, reflecting back our own beliefs and expectations.
It's a thought-provoking idea, and it opens up a whole new avenue of inquiry. If consciousness does play a role in shaping reality, then it suggests that we have more power than we realize, not just to observe the world, but to actively participate in its unfolding.
Okay, we ventured pretty far down the rabbit hole here, but these are the kinds of conversations that Skinwalker Ranch inspires, aren't they?
They are, and I think that's a good place to pause for now. We've explored the history, the legends, the science, and even the metaphysics of Skinwalker Ranch.
We've covered a lot of ground, that's for sure, but this is a mystery that defies easy answers, and I have a feeling there's much more to uncover.
Me too. Skinwalker Ranch is a place that keeps on giving. Every new discovery, every new theory just adds to the intrigue.
So what do you say we take a short break and come back to wrap up our deep dive into Skinwalker Ranch with some final thoughts and reflections?
Sounds good to me. As we delve deeper into the Skinwalker Ranch mystery, I find myself drawn back to those enigmatic creatures that have been reported over the years.
The creatures. Oh yeah, those are the things that give me nightmares.
Understandably so. They're often described in ways that just defy our understanding of known animal behavior. We've got everything from those massive wolf-like creatures that seem impervious to bullets to those shadowy humanoid figures with glowing eyes.
The Sherman's encounter with that wolf-like creature is still one of the most chilling accounts I've ever read.
Absolutely, and it's not an isolated incident. There are numerous reports from credible witnesses who describe encountering similar creatures. And they're not just passive observers. Some of these creatures seem to exhibit an almost intelligence, an awareness of the people they're interacting with.
It's almost like they're toying with us, isn't it? Like they're aware of our fear and curiosity.
It's a disturbing thought, but it raises the question of what these creatures actually are. Are they physical beings, flesh and blood, or are they something else entirely?
We've talked about the possibility of interdimensional beings, entities that might not be bound by the same laws of physics as we are. Could that explain their strange abilities and their elusive nature?
It's certainly a possibility, and it ties into those reports of portals or doorways opening up in the sky above Skinwalker Ranch. What if these creatures are able to travel between dimensions? And the ranch is one of the points where those dimensions intersect with ours.
It's a mind-bending concept,
Hmm.
but it would explain a lot of the stranger aspects of the ranch's history.
It would. And it would challenge our understanding of reality in a fundamental way.
You know, I've always been fascinated by the idea that our perception of reality might be limited. What if there are entire realms of existence that we're simply not equipped to perceive with our five senses?
That's a question that philosophers and mystics have pondered for centuries. But now, even some scientists are starting to consider the possibility that our universe might be far more complex and interconnected than we ever imagined.
And maybe places like Skinwalker Ranch offer us glimpses into those hidden realms, those alternate realities that exist just beyond the veil of our perception.
Exactly. And it's those glimpses, those moments of awe and wonder, that keep us coming back for more, even if it means confronting our deepest fears and challenging our most cherished beliefs.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. Skinwalker Ranch is more than just a collection of strange events. It's a symbol of the unknown, a reminder that there are still mysteries out there, things that defy easy explanation and force us to question everything we think we know about the world.
Well said. And I think that's a valuable lesson to take away from our exploration of this enigmatic place. Skinwalker Ranch teaches us to approach the unknown with both curiosity and caution, to embrace the wonder and mystery of the universe, while also acknowledging that there might be forces at play that we don't fully understand.
And most importantly, it reminds us to never stop asking questions, to keep searching for answers, even if those answers lead us down unexpected paths and challenge our most deeply held beliefs.
Absolutely. The pursuit of knowledge, the desire to understand our place in the cosmos, is one of the most noble human endeavors. And Skinwalker Ranch, with all its strangeness and wonder, invites us to embark on that journey.
Well, I think we've done a pretty thorough job of unpacking the Skinwalker Ranch mystery. We've covered the history, the eyewitness accounts, the scientific investigations, the cultural context, and even the metaphysical implications. We've looked at the different theories, from the extraterrestrial to the interdimensional, from the geophysical to the psychological. And we've explored the human element, the role of consciousness, and the enduring allure of the unknown.
It's been a fascinating and thought-provoking journey, and I hope our listeners have gained a deeper appreciation for the complexities of this enduring mystery.
I'm sure they have. But as we wrap up our deep dive into Skinwalker Ranch, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought. This is a place that continues to evolve, to reveal new layers of strangeness and wonder. The story of Skinwalker Ranch is far from over.
Indeed. And the next chapter might be the most intriguing yet.
So to our listeners, keep an open mind, stay curious, and never stop exploring the uncharted territories of knowledge and the unexplained. Who knows, maybe one day you'll make a discovery that sheds new light on the enigma that is Skinwalker Ranch.
Until then, the mystery endures. And that's part of what makes it so captivating.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Skinwalker Ranch. We'll be back next time with another fascinating topic, ready to explore the uncharted territories of knowledge and the unexplained.
Until then, keep looking up, keep questioning, and never stop exploring the wonders of the world around us.
And remember, the truth is out there, somewhere,